Who is the most feared enemy? When Tucker Carlson spoke at a Heritage Foundation event in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that question wasn't yet settled. His response, "It's the Christians," resonated around the room and was clearly thoughtful. That's the problem. We are being attacked as Christians. This chilling phrase set the tone for a speech imbued with deep concern about the threats facing one of America's strongest communities. Mr. Carlson painted a vivid picture of a country being pushed toward one of its darkest chapters by unseen forces. According to his plan, every glimpse of what's happening in the world would be enough to disgust and anger people. Although he used coarse language, there was truth in what he said. A frightening event on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, a town that strongly supports former President Donald Trump, showed just how serious his warning was. The unexpected event took place at what was supposed to be a normal political rally. Thomas Matthew Crooks, a young man who was present with an AR-15 type rifle, set himself up so that he could clearly see the scene. He was aiming at the former president himself. Crooks fired as Trump addressed the crowd. An almost cinematic twist occurred when Trump turned his head toward the Jumbotron at just the right moment, stopping the bullet before it could kill him. After the initial shock, Crooks fired 8 more shots into the crowd, killing one and wounding many more. The result was chaos. At the same time, Secret Service snipers stood guard and reacted with deadly accuracy, ending Crooks' killing spree with a single shot. Carlson used this chilling event to illustrate his main point. Christians, especially in the US, face a growing number of problems and threats. What he wanted people to do was clear: be vigilant and ready. This point of view not only helps us remember shattering events and how they affected us immediately, but also makes us think about the greater existential threats facing Christian communities today, and encourages us to engage and be ready to fight the dark forces at work. Click on the like button and subscribe to our channel if you found this discussion useful and would like to be kept informed of further reflections like this one. With your help, we can continue to bring you content like this. Thomas Matthew Crooks, the perpetrator of the horrific attack, was a person who left no trace of violence. Members of the Crooks community knew him best for his shooting skills at the local range. He was an excellent shot, but no one ever considered him a threat. His sudden violent act shocked many, as it didn't fit the character of someone known for his calm and lack of violent history. Former President Donald Trump was taken to a nearby hospital immediately after the attack. Thanks to the rapid response and medical care provided, he was airlifted to a place where he was able to make a full recovery. A potentially fatal bullet missed its target because Trump accidentally turned his attention to the Jumbotron. This event was widely perceived as divine intervention. There are many theories about what might have happened had this moment of good fortune not occurred. Today's news could be very different. Tucker Carlson spoke of the gravity of the current situation in the United States when thinking about these events. He said that the forces of evil had been watching the country for some time and now felt confident enough to attack powerful people striving to bring light into the darkness. Donald Trump's public image has been built around his unwavering support for Christians and his calls for America to return to prayer. Mr. Carlson explained to the crowd in attendance that Mr. Trump's survival was no mere happy accident, but a sign that his work was not yet done. According to him, the only reason Trump isn't yet a memory is that God isn't done with him yet. This suggests that Trump is still on the political scene for a more important reason. This attempted assassination of the president has not only shocked the country, it has also awakened many who were asleep. Many can't escape the harsh reality that America may no longer be a welcoming land for the religious. This is not just an isolated event. Saturday's shooting is seen as a clear example of the spiritual battle Carlson spoke of, pitting the forces of evil against the forces of light. The event provoked a wider awakening among Christians and highlighted the spiritual aspects of current social problems. Carlson made a very good point when he said that we can't just look at what's happening in terms of the weather or politics. The gaps we can see are bigger, more spiritual, and can no longer be hidden. After the failed assassination attempt, a clear and provocative message has been sent out in many directions. The forces of chaos, violence, and destruction have taken off their masks and now face those who oppose their diabolical plans. Tucker Carlson's reflections on these events touch us deeply, for they reflect the essence of a struggle not only for political power, but also for the soul of the nation. His assertion that America belongs to God is similar to a view that is becoming increasingly popular among powerful groups, particularly within the Republican Party. Please help us continue these conversations by liking, subscribing, and maybe even saying super thanks if this video spoke to you. Your help is really important. Several speakers returned to the idea of divine protection and intervention. The story of Trump's miraculous escape has always been told as if it were not mere luck, but a sign of God's favor. Well-known Republicans, such as Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, have strongly supported this view. She declared that not even an assassin's bullet could stop President Trump, implying that he was protected by a higher power. Other prominent figures, such as Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Congressman Brian Donalds, agreed with this view. They both believe that God played a role in Donald Trump's survival. A common theme was the idea that Trump was protected by God, showing that there is a plan in place that keeps him safe even when the odds are against him. Governor Abbott said the person would have died if the bullet had hit him just 0.5 centimeters to the right. Politicians aren't the only ones to have felt invested with a divine mission. The Reverend Franklin Graham, a well-known leader in the American Christian community and son of the famous evangelist Billy Graham, was very grateful that Mr. Trump was unharmed. He thanked God for saving Trump and saw him as a key figure who would recover what was lost in 2020 and continue to fight for Christian rights. Supporters' ideas about what happened and how it all fits together point to a spiritual war story in which political battles are seen as part of a greater cosmic battle. A strong belief that resonates throughout the country is that God is actively involved in America's affairs, and that He guides and protects its leaders, especially those who uphold Christian values. The recent physical attack seems to be a stark reminder of the spiritual warfare underway against Christians just before the election. People don't see this attack as a random act of violence, but as a planned action by the spiritual enemy, often called the devil, and his agents on earth in what is known as the deep state. Their aim seems to be to silence a voice that has always defended Christian values. Although this period is full of trials, it is not perceived as painful. Rather, it is seen as a test of faith and endurance. The main belief remains that God's will cannot be changed, even if the devil tries to harm what God likes. No evil force can destroy what God has built. The lives of the faithful have been destroyed in a discreet but deadly way, like a snake. But God's people are told to remain vigilant, ready for any attack, able to resist temptation, and unwavering in prayer. It's not just the faith of individuals or groups that's at stake, it's the very soul of America. The story of divine intervention even includes Donald Trump. When he remembered his near-death experience, he told Senator Bill Hagerty and on his social media accounts that a higher power played a big part in saving his life. Only God prevented the unthinkable from happening, Trump said, reaffirming that he was ready to resume his mission, which he believes was set up by God. Yet the event was not without profound tragedy. Firefighter Corey Comparatore, a 50-year-old community hero, died in the chaos that followed, leaving his family and community in shock. Mr. Trump personally called Mr. Comparatore's widow to offer his condolences. This act, while kind, also drew attention to the wider consequences of the attack. The message is clear. The battle is spiritual as well as physical, and the response must be based on faith, strength, and a firm determination to protect what is sacred. The effects of the recent attack go beyond the immediate tragedy. 2 other people were seriously injured, and, as they try to recover, their lives are in danger. Reverend Franklin Graham used the event to send a spiritual message to Donald Trump and his supporters. The shooting is a sign from God that Trump's power and strength come from a higher power, not from himself. Mr. Graham believes that Mr. Trump should not rejoice in this near-fatal event. Rather, he should take the opportunity to thank God for protecting and thanking him. In this tense environment, a larger story is taking shape that suggests a malevolent force lurks in the shadows, ready to attack the American Christian community. This shadowy presence is seen as an attempt to prevent Trump from running for president again, and the current administration is seen as little more than a tool of the forces of evil. This is a very bad image, as it shows a country under attack on every level, not just politically or socially, but spiritually too. Some members of the Christian community argue that the stakes couldn't be higher. Many fear that if things continue to evolve as they are in politics, American values will collapse on many levels, including spiritually, economically, and territorially. As a result, there's a clear call for believers to pray even more, asking God to protect Trump and, by extension, the country's leaders from further attacks, and to ensure that he returns to office safely. It's not just about surviving or winning in politics, but also about how America sees itself as a God-fearing Christian nation. Believers are urged to remain true to their faith, no matter what, even if further assassination attempts or threats threaten their religious freedom. The community is reminded of what gives it the greatest security: the promise of God's victory. This call to spiritual arms is not only to protect against enemies on earth, but also to remind us of the eternal vision. People who believe in God must remember that all earthly powers, no matter how frightening, will one day be subject to divine judgment. This vision of the end of the world reinforces the conviction that nothing on earth can stop God's will. It gives people a deep sense of hope and strength in difficult times. Political and spiritual issues are increasingly intertwined, and new reports and trends show that the problems facing Christians in the USA are getting frighteningly worse. These ideas, which come from different places, point to a time of greater threats and the need to have faith and act again. Attacks on religious freedom and places of worship have become much more common. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops reports that vandalism and other acts of violence against churches have increased dramatically. This is particularly true after social issues and controversial court rulings. This rise in hostility is not only a sign of local unease, but also of broader national and global tensions affecting religious communities. Open Doors USA has noted the same worrying trend. Attacks on Christian property have increased by 700% worldwide. This shows just how bad the situation is for the Christian diaspora worldwide. These attacks are numerous and very violent. It shows how deeply rooted hatred and polarization are in global and local politics. In response to these problems, Christian leaders are calling people to greater spiritual resolve. This narrative, increasingly common among evangelicals and other Christian groups, sees these trials as a test from God, inviting believers to devote themselves more to prayer and community. It's important to see these trials not only as social and political problems, but also as signs of a spiritual battle that requires a strong, faith-based response. Thank you for reading. If you liked the ideas we shared today, please feel free to like, subscribe, and maybe even leave a super thank you. Your participation really helps us achieve our goal of creating thoughtful, impactful content. Talking about these issues at events and in the media also helps us understand how important it is to be spiritually and communally resilient. Leading religious figures have stressed the importance of prayer and trust in God. They support a view that sees problems as opportunities to strengthen faith and ask God for help in difficult times. Throughout the story, Christians are invited to reflect on their role in a larger divine plan. The story underlines the need to be vigilant, to pray, and to be proactive in dealing with the spiritual and material problems of our time. The call to action is clear. Come together in faith and purpose to make the community stronger and better able to manage and get through the difficult times ahead. Thank you for your support.